Hello and welcome to the A-Form Show. My name is Alan George and thank you very much for tuning in. Each week, we sit across from thought leaders and change makers in the architecture and design space of the GCC. We dive deep into their experiences, both professionally and personally, and share their valuable insight as to what makes them tick. Our goal is to add value to your day and help you navigate your own personal creative journey. Finally, the opinions and the views of the guest speakers are that of their own. They do not necessarily represent the views and the opinions of the show or the host. Before we get into the show, we'd love to give a big shout out to our friends at Inscape Education Management, based right here out of Dubai Design District. Inscape is a design training institute specializing in skill training specifically for the design and creative professions. They currently offer short courses in architecture, fashion, interior design, and graphics design. Inscape's unique training style is aimed at training individuals through design thinking methodologies, enabling them to process and generate real-life solutions with confidence. If you're a working professional, they got you covered too. In addition to the daytime courses that they have running, there are courses tailor-made for you with evening sessions. They provide working professionals with an opportunity to acquire new skills when it suits them. In a nutshell, you can earn while you learn. So the time is now. Pick up a new skill and add value to your workspace. If this is of interest to you, feel free to reach out to them on Instagram and Facebook at We Are Inscape UAE. That is, We Are Inscape UAE. Today's guest is Devanshi Jakhiya. As an interior designer, Devanshi has constantly challenged the status quo. Never satisfied with the mediocre, she is known for pushing boundaries in her design. She has been part of projects which have truly created an identity for their clients. Currently practicing out of the award-winning firm Brand Creative, she has been exposed to interior design, brand creation, ideation, and brand identity. Undoubtedly, it's safe to say Devanshi understands the why behind interior design as well as the how. Armed with this foundation, we are sure she is going to go on to do big things in the field. Be on the lookout for what she does next. In today's episode, we talk about having a vision and executing on it, her work at Brand Creative, and the current market stance on interior design. So without further ado, take it away, Devanshi. And we're live again.
Hi.
For those of you who don't know, we actually went about 10 minutes into this interview and then the entire software just crashed. So we're going to try and do this as casually and as informally as we can all over again.
Okay, fine. Let's do this all over again.
Right. So, hi Devanshi.
Hi, Alan.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How is everything with you? Thank you for the coffee, by the way.
Oh, no worries. It's on the house. So right off the bat, man, one of the reasons why I actually wanted to have you on the show was because I want to kind of share the ID side of things for this industry, specifically for this region, because a lot of people kind of assume it's very similar to architecture, but it really isn't. And specifically why I wanted you is because I've only recently met you. I don't know much about your work and what you do and so on, but one of the first times I met you, I thought your energy was just infectious. And therefore, I'm like, there is no way that doesn't translate to your work. So this is kind of like my selfish opportunity to figure out how you operate, right?
Thank you.
So first question is, tell me about how you found interior design, or maybe how interior design found you.
Okay, so this was never like a direct decision. It was just along the years, I found out that it was aligning with my personal values and who I am as a person. And it just found me, basically. And it has a funny story to it. So basically, there were two major decisions that were lined up for me. The first one being in grade 12, where my parents decided that I'd be doing commerce with marketing. And this was absolutely nowhere close to what I ever wanted to do. I had no idea though.
But did they have any inclination, not about you wanting to do interior design, but about you being creative in any way?
Yeah.
Any particular
thing that you always like doing?
Yeah, I was always like into sketching, drawing, arts, and I was always into the artsy side of things. I walked into my first class, first day of grade 11, and 15 minutes into my marketing class, I got up and, like, very dramatically, I told everybody, okay, not everybody, my professor, okay, this is not happening. I am out of here. I got out, but
I
in a
picture
nice
this-
way. In a nice way.
I picture this like a very movie kind of scene, but like, I have had enough of this nonsense. You can say, yeah, that's how it went down.
Yeah, but at the same time, in a nice way.
Yes, like, I have had enough of this.
This is not
This is
happening.
not it.
Yeah. And then I didn't just walk into a fashion studies class. Yes, of course, I had to go through the proper channels, but I'd like to say that, yes, I just walked out of the class and walked into a fashion design class. That's about it. So I did it, although
But fashion design still isn't interior design.
it isn't still
So
interior
you
design.
still then.
It was still
meandered your
something,
way.
yeah, it was still something design related, at least something that aligns more with who I am as a person and not completely what my parents wanted me to do.
Right.
So like I respected their decision, and I actually did well. I was really horrible all throughout my school life. I would fail a subject, and
Which is actually very common when I talk to a lot of people, I mean myself included. I very proudly say that I actually failed my 12th. Which I know is like a big deal for like a lot of people, and rightly so. At the time it was very crippling for me,
yeah,
but then I realized once I found something which I was genuinely passionate for, I could work like hours and hours and hours and not even realize.
yeah,
It reached a point where grades didn't even matter.
yeah,
I knew I would get a good grade. It didn't matter if it was a B or an A or whatever, but I was more passionate about the work that I was doing really being up to its best potential. So it's quite common actually. So
yeah.
that makes sense. So you study interior design. I understand you have some time with APID. For our listeners, what is the APID to start off?
APID is the Association of Professional Interior Design, and again, Canadian University organized a career fair, and I was just like walking by and like checking out all the stands and stuff. At that moment, I met Linda Meriu, my mentor, through the summer of 2015. I just submitted my CV. I was very enthusiastic about doing an internship anywhere it would be,
Right.
but I didn't know what it's going to be. It would turn out to be APID. A week later, I got an email from Linda saying that you've been selected for an internship with us over the summer. I mean, it was a very big year for APID because it was their 10th year and they wanted to launch their 10th anniversary publication. I was assisting Linda with anything and everything that she wanted to do for that publication.
So that was kind of like an anniversary edition.
Exactly.
Okay. Tell me about how she became your mentor. Or did you know you even wanted one, or it just kind of happened naturally?
It just kind of happened naturally.
No, because this is something which I kind of struggle with a lot. I keep telling people that they should find a mentor, especially for creatives, especially if you don't particularly have any roots in the field. It makes sense to find a mentor just because, you know, you can obviously learn so much more. But then people always then ask me, okay, but how do I A, find one? And B, if I find one, how do I approach one? And C, if I find one and approach one, how do I convey what my intent and what I want to get out of it? Because basically I'm going and asking someone who has probably no time to give me some of their time for no potential financial gain in the near future. So how do I sell, you know, myself to a person like that and tell them that please give me your time because I would really want to learn? So all I told them is that literally tell me that. Literally go them and tell them I will do whatever it takes to be around you for like the next whatever 2 months. Don't pay me, don't do anything. I just want to be around you to absorb as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm like literally just go to whoever it is and tell that person that this is what you want. Be very clear about what you want to get out of it. Be very clear about their commitment to the same thing. And you know what? If they say no, they say no. But at least you
You've
know,
given a shot, yeah.
at least you've given it a shot. And sooner or later, you will actually have someone who is genuinely going to be like, well, no one's ever done that before. Sure, absolutely.
I'm happy to help.
I'm happy to help. I mean, tag along. Why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's really underrated how important mentorship actually is nowadays, especially.
Yeah.
To know in your case, so it just happened naturally.
It
then.
happened just naturally, and then eventually, like for me at that time, it has always been about trying to add as much as value as I can to the organization as well as to the person. Like, I know there are no financial gains, like little to no financial gains when it comes to an internship. However, there are a lot more gains in terms of, yeah, there's a lot of experience that you gain out of this.
Experience and exposure, a lot of stuff which you would normally not be exposed to,
Yeah.
or rather have not been exposed to. Like a lot of, I find a lot of back end things.
Yeah, so
like
I learned a lot of admin stuff, like how to write emails,
present yourself.
present yourself.
Right.
Exactly.
And I know in like my very first internship, I was lucky enough to kind of go to like a very small firm. And therefore, one of my very first things was to proofread a contract, which was like 50 pages or something at the time.
Wow.
And I had no idea. My only job was not to check the content, but was to like kind of like grammar check and things like that. And I found myself literally like on Google every 5 minutes, kind of, Googling those abbreviations, like what does RFP mean? Oh, okay, that's the very first line. Okay, moving on.
Okay.
And I had no idea because obviously I've never done that. But I guess that's what that whole internship experience is supposed to be like.
That is exactly how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
So APID happens.
Yeah. So during APID and this whole preparing for the 10th anniversary publication, there was a major section of the publication which was dedicated towards what interior design is going to be 10 years from now, which involved me going to like some of the top design agencies back in the day, which is also kind of true. I mean, they're still in the market, and like you get the experience of an exposure to go to every single office and find out how the vibe is, how the environment is, the kind of people who the design leaders are, and like you get a chance to, like, I got a chance to directly interact with a lot of the design leaders. And I finally met the creative director of Brand Creative, Carla Conte. And at the end of the interview, because obviously again I went to the office, I didn't meet the people as such, but I saw how they worked, and I met Carla. And at the end of the interview, like, this was my aha moment.
But this was your interview of her for APID.
Yes, for what design is going to be 10 years from now. And like at the end of the interview, I asked her if there was any way I could intern with her at the office. But then like I did approach her after I graduated, like by myself, but I never got a response from her, because obviously she gets a lot of
a million emails probably.
Exactly. And yeah, that never happened. But every single step from 2015 all the way until 2017 was me trying to get into brand creative. Like, that was my whole and soul aim. Like, nothing more, nothing less. And
that's dedication. That's something you don't hear about very often. Because people normally are like, yeah, dude, I just need a job at a place. It doesn't matter. But no, so I want to know if that was your intent. You had it set in your mind that I want to work as an interior designer with brand creative, nothing more, nothing less. So I'm trying to understand how much of tailoring or how much of change or how much of revision, for lack of a better word, did you have to do for your own work, for yourself, in order to make that happen?
Like, I didn't have to do revisions as such. I had to edit my CV and portfolio and everything to make sure that it is more so aligned towards what brand creative does.
Right.
Because back in the days, I was very much into graphic design.
Right.
As well as interior design. Like, I was studying interior design, but I was heavily interested in graphic design. So I think that was a good starting point. And I had also worked for, like, I had also interned for another company wherein I had to do all of their graphic work.
Right.
So yeah, I kind of had the experience of graphics, but like studying interior design, and that's what I thought was the starting point to go there. Like, skill, in terms of the skill, like design skill. But however, I started following them on their social media, like the way they used to put up things on their website. Like you can already tell that they're very team oriented, and that is one thing that I really liked. And even when I had met Carla, she always gave me the vibe of we do this, like we do this.
There's
And
no I, it's always we.
it's always we, and it's not like, you know how designers are generally very egotistical, which is why I never wanted, I didn't want to be a part of something that was just all about an I.
Right.
And whenever there is like this whole we and this team spirit, it always like, it really attracted me towards
Right.
being a part of this organization.
Which actually makes sense. I can see why you'd be attracted to that. I think anyone would, in all honesty. I just don't think people have articulated that is what they want. I think a lot of people realize what you realize maybe like midway in their career, when they're like, oh man, this isn't really what I wanted, and why is it? And oh, that's why it is. And if they obviously put their mind to it, they can make the change. But for most people, it becomes a bit too late by that point. I can totally relate to that, because there was a firm which I wanted to work with, not as intensely as how you wanted to work with brand creative, for sure. But this firm that I wanted to work for, and I actually did pretty much what you did. Literally stalked them on socials and like actually reworked my entire portfolio to match their color palette, to match their font, to match the way that they presented. They had this style wherein they'd have like one big image and then like a bit of text, and then a few like diagrammatic kind of like explanations of whatever.
I see.
I actually like reworked my work to match that format, and then I literally like custom made that entire portfolio, like even addressed it to the director, like typed out, and it got printed and bound and everything like that.
Did you ever submit it to them though?
I did.
Okay.
It didn't really lead to anything. It led to me basically getting FaceTime with that person who was overly impressed, because obviously I took so much time and effort into it. And when I came in the door, I came in already knowing a lot about how the office, at least their projects were.
Yeah.
Because I was following, like literally, I was following them on like their news feeds, any awards that they won, where their staff was going, where their sites were, what was active, what was completed. So I kind of went in knowing all of this already.
Okay.
At the time, obviously, they had their own thing. So I didn't really have a position there. But my point is that led to like a very good relationship, which in my view is a victory out of that entire process.
It definitely is. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. I mean, that's what when I try explaining it to a lot of people, they don't really see the ROI on it or any kind of return on it for that matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, I feel like there is. I just don't think there's any way to measure it.
I have a very similar story. So back when I was graduating, we have this class for portfolio and stuff. So I had already clearly told my intent to my professor, and so even when
this is a brand creative portfolio right now, I'm telling you.
Yeah, and I was writing everything about that portfolio class for me was how I'm going to get into brand creative. Every single class of that was just me trying to get into brand creative, including writing cover letters. Actually, to be honest, like my logo wasn't entirely based on brand creative, but the color scheme sort of. It was not exactly. It was in the same the same colors,
the same palette,
the similar palette. It was not the same. It was not exactly the same, but it was very similar. Again, at the end of it, it did not happen the traditional way. I applied. Again, like they get millions of CVs and stuff. So obviously it never went through this way. At the end, when I was graduating, I had another internship that I did at a furniture design company, followed by one of our professors, Mr. Massimo Imparato. He had his own project, which was a conference. I don't know if you've heard of UA Modern.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so I was helping him assist to like event coordinate the whole thing, and this was the very first time he was doing this as well. So it was really exciting for the both of us. And then I happened to meet the sponsor of UA Modern, Renee. Renee was the ex-Apid director after Linda. And when Renee said that, okay, she was working for APID back in the day, right after Linda left the company, I kind of had a chance or a hope that she would know somebody from Brand Creative. Finally, I mustered up the courage to like, hey, by any chance, do you know anybody from Brand Creative? And then she's like, yeah, I know Carla. So I said, I really want to do an internship at her company, like whether it's paid or unpaid or whatever the hell, like whatever it may be, I just want to be there. Then she's like, yeah, sure, just send me a CV and portfolio. And I sent it to her that night. And then a week later, again, like, I didn't know if I should ask her or not. Like, I didn't want to be sounding so pushy, but then again, like, I just like, hey, by any chance, did you did you hear back from her? And then to my surprise, she actually emailed Renee back, and she said that she remembered me from 2 years and that I could give her a call. So UAE Modern was a 3-day event, and then on the second day of the event, I landed an internship at Brand Creative, and that was like I was so happy. I was so happy. And then so I did my 3-month internship, and it was almost coming to an end. And I definitely wanted a job there. For sure, I wasn't leaving the company now.
You're not gonna get me out of here that easily.
That's not happening. Yeah, like we had a couple of discussions, like with Carla. I showed her my vision board that
Sweet.
that I always wanted to be a part of it. She was impressed. And first she asked me, are you looking for anything else? I said, to be honest, I stopped looking for I never wanted to look at any other, like, I never looked outside of what I wanted. I wanted just this, and that's it. Like,
Right.
Yeah, nothing more, nothing less, and that's it.
Nice. And you've been there now for how long?
A year and a half. And now as an interior designer, though, not an intern.
Of course, because that was the aim.
Yeah.
So, in your last 1.5 years, anything? I mean, I'm sure this is a very touchy subject, and I understand there are a lot of projects that have an NDA and stuff, but is there anything that you've worked on which you kind of felt really proud of, which you kind of want to like shout out to the world, be like, hey, look at this, I worked on that?
So there are a lot of projects that I worked on, like being a part of the team. Obviously, I worked on a lot of projects, but there's this one project that's really close to my heart, which is Scorpion Smoking Center, which is now opened in Box Park. By the way, if you guys want to go check it out.
Shout out, little plug to Scorpion Smoking Center.
I mean, I never knew though, like the first project that I would be much more involved in. I got the chance to work on the design direction of it. And then there's the one part of the store that I'm absolutely proud of is the ceiling design of Scorpion Smoking Center.
Sweet. We go check it out.
Yeah.
Actually, I think if it's possible, we might even try to like link it in the show notes or something at the bottom. So if you guys are listening to this, there's probably some kind of link somewhere. We'll try to figure it out and, put up a picture somewhere.
Okay. Thank you for that. So yeah, that is one of the projects that I'm proud of. Yeah, I am proud of.
Okay, cool. Next thing that I'd want to know is, there is no clear definition as to how architects work, and everyone has like their own, like unique style of, workflow.
An approach and how they
approach and everything. So I'm curious to know what is yours? And then what is, say, Brand Creatives in general? How do you guys approach, a fresh job? So if you have, say, a client who's walked in, you've kind of had that initial meeting, you kind of have your brief nailed down.
Yeah.
So how would you or how would Brand Creative then take that forward? What's your workflow like?
Okay, so personally, I would I would actually handwrite all of the notes that were given by the client. So it sits in my head. Once I'm done with that, I go ahead and do like some inspiration sketches and all of that, and then 3D modeling by hand, not on the computer.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm very hands-on like that. So I like to do that and then go back to the sample library, get some finishes. Like, actually, that's pretty much how even our whole design team works. Like we sit and read through the brief, or like somebody like Sana and I, for example, we sit and write things down.
Right. But then when you say that you make models, physical models for interiors, what would that be like? I mean, I'm trying to understand Models of what? Are you talking more like?
First, it was me actually sitting and writing down the brief, because in brand creative, the way we work is like we do the branding, we do the interior, we do the graphics. It's actually a holistic way of working towards a brand and doing what's best for it, as
Just-
opposed to something that, oh, okay, like we're just doing it for
Yeah, like you know, we'll have another consultant later on who'll come and figure that out.
Yeah. So we like to work things in
In one direction. Like
one direction.
everyone's under one umbrella, so everyone's working in that one
Yeah.
direction, which is nice, which is
A multi-sensory holistic experience.
right. Cool. Right. So Scorpion Smoking Center was one of the projects you were really proud of. You were telling us about how
The 3D
workflow
modeling
works.
Yeah, so 3D, like I just sit and model things that, so once I'm done with inspiration sketches, then it could be modeling anything and everything. So for like this project specifically, I was trying out different ways of doing the ceiling up.
Right.
But again, it wasn't just this, like not just 3D modeling. Then I was trying to sketch something, and then I had given one of our senior 3D persons to model something on CAD. But then on the other hand, like when I realized I'm not happy with that and that's actually not working out, then I started approaching things in a more traditional way.
Right. When you say traditional, meaning you were just sketching a lot more.
Sketching and like doing all of the...
How important do you think that
That is very important. You have to approach it with a lot more care.
Right, but my thing is, granted, you can do that on CAD as well. My question is more, why is sketching the way forward? At least for that initial design step, as compared to say a machine or any kind of CAD.
Personally, for me, it takes a lot more time to work on CAD as opposed to just sitting and sketching something. Like I feel like it's more of, it gives a more free flow of a thought.
Right.
It's almost like doing a prep, like you're preparing for a client presentation where you're speaking to somebody and you're like just going all out, but you're not in front of the client. But then when it comes to doing a client presentation, you have to really refine that. It's exactly like you have to refine those thoughts and then project it in front of them.
Which makes sense, which probably means that your design process is a lot more iterative, in the sense that you have many kind of ideas that evolve into other ideas, which merge with other ideas, and then you have this new baby that's formed at the end of it, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly how we work. So like, for example, I have a set of ideas, and then let's say Boutros, like our design manager, he would have some ideas, and then another person would have some ideas, and then another person would have some ideas, and then then we sit together. Not on a meeting table, we have balls we sit on. It sounds funny, but yeah.
I just picture like everyone like bouncing around and like,
yeah, like that's
this is my idea for today.
We sit together and then we get excited about each other's ideas. Oh my god, that's totally gonna work out. Let's do that. And everybody gets excited about everybody's ideas, but then obviously like we don't go. There are sometimes when we go all out crazy about, oh fuck, like this is amazing. And then we try out, and like obviously you don't get the design at once. It goes through a lot of like, oh my god, we got excited to no, this isn't working out.
Right. I mean, it happens a lot with us. I mean, we're recently working on this tower project, and again we got like super excited. We're like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this, and we're gonna do like this hanging, green garden, and we're gonna do that, and we had all these sketches, and then when we actually like scaled it to the site, we're like, right, so it's a really small site. I don't think we can do any of that. We might have to like tailor our ambition a little more realistically, but I completely understand. Like, I mean, at least with me also, I like how that end product should not be known. I think if you already in your mind know what that end product is, you probably are doing something wrong. Like there's something which is not really adding up. In the same breath, I would also say there are a lot of architects who kind of like directly can visualize exactly what they want.
I feel like that comes with a lot of experience.
Probably. But I've found, at least for me, the projects that I've worked on, wherein what I started off was something, and then what actually like got approved, like they're not even the same language. They're like completely different. I find those are normally the most successful projects.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's exactly what happens with us as well. Like we start with something, it kind of is somewhere, but not really there.
Right.
And then eventually it gets there, and then,
Okay.
yeah, that's about it.
Cool. Well, on that happy note, we're going to take a very, very, very quick commercial break. Probably get another coffee, please. And we'll be right back. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you right around the corner.
See you.
Thank you guys for listening to this episode thus far. It makes us really, really proud that we can add value to your commute, your drive, your workout, your design time, whatever it is that you may be doing, and keep you inspired. Our inspiration and passion is fueled by the amazing team over at the Orange Design Group. The Orange Design Group, or ODG as they're affectionately known, is an award-winning boutique design firm specializing in bespoke, client-centric design solutions. They're based right here out of Dubai. What's cool with them is that under their umbrella, they offer an integrated design concept with architectural, specialist lighting, and home automation services. Their designs are super clean, as in super, super clean. They have a keen eye for detail, and their work has gone on to be featured in various media outlets, both locally and internationally. Their work has won multiple awards across various fields. Currently, they're working on delivering niche, residential, and cultural projects across the GCC. Their work is truly, truly, truly inspiring for any designer. You guys should definitely check them out. They're on LinkedIn and Instagram. The handles are at Orange Design Group. That is at Orange Design Group.
And damn, that was really loud.
Oh.
All right.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
we're back. Thank you guys for tuning in again. Well, I don't think they're tuning in again. I think they were probably just listening to us all this time.
I'd like to believe so.
Before the break, we were talking about what your design workflow is like, what brand creative is like, how you guys kind of come up with your solutions and ideas and so on. Now, for me, something that I struggle with is I can never kind of put into a sentence or put into a phrase what I think good design is. When people ask me, what is good design? Because I'm guilty of constantly saying, oh, that's very badly designed, or that cup is badly designed, or, and then the next question I get asked is normally, then what is good design? And I at least struggle a lot with trying to answer what that question is for me. So I'd like to know if you have any thoughts on what do you think good design is in maybe like a phrase or a sentence or whatever it may be.
I do have a phrase, and I can say that, but to what you have to say, I feel like good design has to be more about function. Like, it first of all needs to be functionally in check. Like, it has to work out in that, like in the technical terms. However, like aesthetically,
but I think it should work out. I think the emphasis needs to be that it has to work 100% flawlessly. It can't kind of work most of the times. It has to work in any scenario all the time as a basic.
Yeah, for sure, functionality has to, like, it is a must, but I'm not saying that aesthetic isn't. The aesthetic should really depend on, for example, in our case, it's the brand, about like it's all about bringing the brand forward, or to bring up their sales, or to communicate the brand's identity as you walk through the store, or as you walk through the salon or the spa, or whatever, like whatever the commercial space may be. But in one line, if I were to say, like, the most perfect definition so far as of today for me would be, good interior design is to create a holistic multi-sensory experience which is in alignment with the brand or the business's identity.
That seems like it's a very obviously well thought out, well written kind of phrase, which rightly so it should be. But then, yeah, my next question would be, obviously, then what does that mean to you? Like, give me an example of what is a multi-sensory experience? What are you looking to design when you say multi-sensory experience?
So multi-sensory experiences involving as many as senses as you can, which is touch, sight,
Right.
okay, taste. When it comes to F&B, it has to be a very important part of it. Smell, for example, like to be able to customize a scent for a particular brand by knowing the attributes of the personality of the brand, that would be Like as soon as you walk into the store, not only is it visually in alignment with what the store looks like, however, it also smells in a particular way. So,
Right.
so I mean that has a lasting impact. Especially like for me, it's the smell. Like it really has a lasting impact on a brand,
Right.
along with the visuals.
Right. I think there was a few studies done about how the sense of smell actually is one of the senses that actually impact memory the most. Meaning, a lot of your memories, if you actually think about them, they actually have the image kind of gets blurred over time.
Yeah, but the smell is
You
really
always remember the smell, which makes a lot of sense. And this is something which actually my sister kind of does. Like it's her job. She's into perfumes and so on.
oh wow, that's
So
exciting.
she keeps telling me about how she picks up scents, but when she picks up scents, she's like a proper nose. That's the term now.
Okay.
So she actually can like break down stuff. So she can say, oh, that's a bit of musk and a bit of this and that and so on. So whenever I take her to stores, whenever there's a very if it hits her immediately, I know that was intentional. I know that wasn't a random scent somewhere. Someone actually designed that store to have that scent at that time.
Yeah.
At that point where you just walk in. You want to create a multi-sensory experience. A big other one is the sense of touch, right?
Yes.
Okay, so my question would then be, how important is something like FFNE? If the sense of touch is a sense that you want to invigorate or a sense that you want to activate, whatever it may be, is that probably why in the field there are so many more FFNE specialists and FFNE, firms that specialize only in that as compared to interior designers who do FFNE? I think my question is, I want to understand, can an interior designer do FFNE? And if so, what is the difference with an interior designer and an FFNE specialist?
Okay. So
Or is there any difference at all, even? I don't know.
there definitely okay. Interior design is a broad term. For example, like it is a broad term, and then FFNE is every interior designer must know how to do FFNE.
Right.
It's not just FFNE, by the way. It's FFNE and finishes. Finishes is everything that is on the wall and it stays like on it.
Fixed, yeah.
Yeah, fixed. But FFNE is anything that can be moved out, or
Right.
for example, a rug. But a carpet is a finish, for example. So FFNE is everything that can be moved out of the space and moved into the space, and you can kind of play around with it.
I've heard a good metaphor for this. This is something which my director has told me, which I'm sure someone has told him back in the day. But I find it the most like simplest way to explain it, which is if you were to kind of take your design as a small box in your hand, and you were to kind of like shake that box around, like
Yeah.
in your hand, like constantly, just like whirl it around, and then kind of empty the contents out.
Yeah.
Whatever stays in the box would
Is
be
finishes.
finishes, and whatever falls out
Is the FFNE.
is the FFNE. I mean, I know it's a very rudimentary way to explain it. I'm sure
But
there
it's
is
a very clear way of explaining something.
right. I mean, of course there are exceptions, I'm sure, but for the most part,
That is what it
That
is
is kinda
actually.
what
It is actually what it like. It is actually what you. It appears to be that FFNE is like selecting pretty things and from the off the shelf and like, oh that's pretty, let's just use it. Oh that's pretty, let's just use that.
Right.
But it's actually not like that. It's even so. I would like to speak for both in FFNE and finishes. The person doesn't have to be a specialist, but they should definitely know what it is all about. And yeah, like I said, it's not just picking out pretty things. It needs to be in alignment with the brand, but it also has to be of good quality. And
of course, I mean that's kind of a given.
yeah.
I mean,
But here in Dubai, what I've seen is that everything sort of gets value engineered.
it's kind of like a requirement now. Like I get surprised when people don't do it now.
if it is a high-end project, it definitely goes through, and
Right.
like everything is as per the specification, even when it, because every FFNE, like every piece of furniture that you specify, it's, you can't just specify as is, especially if it is a high-end brand. It has its lead times that you have to consider. It has every like element of that furniture can possibly be customized, for example, in terms of the size, the finish, and every, when you're doing the specification sheet, you have to ensure that the quantities are, because you're responsible for a huge,
Of course.
it is a huge responsibility.
And that also then impacts, if say you mess that up, for example, that would also impact, like you said, lead times.
Yeah.
And that impacts when the project gets delivered, and then that impacts when the client can go into business. So it's quite a very understated role,
Yeah.
but I mean, it's a very understated task.
Yeah,
Yeah, sure,
like when I joined, it was, I just thought it was like whatever, and everybody told me that no, it is important. But as I am going through it, like as I'm working on it, as I'm getting more involved in it now,
Right.
that I realized that it is actually a very important, it actually plays a very important role, because you have to specify, like I said, each and every small detail.
Right. So that's kind of where we're at now, right? I mean, that's kind of how things operate now.
Yeah.
I'm looking to understand from you from an IT point of view. Now, this is a little more holistic, right? Obviously, with keeping the market that we're in right now as some kind of reference point, where do you actually see the field moving towards in the next, say, 5 years? I mean, what are the trends we should be looking out for? Maybe something in design, maybe something in materials, any kind of overall design ethos, which is kind of picking up now, which might become a big thing in the next 5 years or so.
Okay, so obviously we have heard a lot of green design, a sustainable design, and like picking out materials by being conscientious of how you're impacting the environment. Especially Dubai taking a lot of initiatives to do green design and sustainable design. That is already happening. However, what I really appreciate and I really like what Dubai is doing is that it is incorporating even the heritage side of it, the history side of it, which to such a global centric community, it is trying to also like, yes, it is becoming a global centric community. Like Dubai is something very global, but at the same time, it is trying to communicate its cultural values, its historical background. And one of my favorite projects is Al Seef now. If you have seen, like they are trying to incorporate, like it is an extension of Bastakia, one of my favorite projects by Godwin Austin Johnson.
Right.
So I like how they have their heritage side sort of more extended, and then there is the second half of it which gears more towards the modern side of it. Like,
Right.
so you have your Emirati side of it, or the Dubai side of it, the actual true Dubai side of it, and then there is the Dubai approaching towards a more global centric.
I never actually, I mean, now that you say it to me, it makes sense. I never really saw it that way. I always thought that particular project was a little fractured, because clearly there's such a clear definition between the heritage side of design and the modern side of design. I probably would have wanted something little more mixed. It seems like you're literally like transitioning into something entirely different, which kind of makes sense now that I say it out loud. Yeah, it makes sense as to how that is very representative of how Dubai is. Like they had that culture for such a long time, and then metaphorically speaking, a few decades is not very long to be transitioning into what
and
they
there
are
is
now.
literally like a transition point, which is so like, even as you are walking
Right.
through the space, like, by the way, I go there every single day, like,
Right,
okay,
right.
not every single day.
Shout out to our friends over at Gage. Your project's doing really well.
You know what I really like about that project is like the heritage side is definitely my most favorite side of it, because
It's really intimate, no?
yeah, walking through each and every lane has a different experience, because it's not, I mean, you won't see the same thing happening over and over again,
Yeah.
as opposed to when you're going to the modern side of things.
Right.
And also I keep promoting I keep talking about this project to everybody who comes to Dubai. They have to go to Al Seef and especially visit the washrooms, because it is something that I try to do in my
I think that's a architect and interior designer quirk. All of us like love a well designed washroom. Like I've literally come out of some of them and been like, "Yo, you need to go inside that washroom right now." I mean, look at that finishing, bro. That negative joint was like perfect.
exactly. For me, it is. You see how the way they picked out the doors, the way the signage is, like it is very holistic. It's a massive success for me. I mean, getting into that kind of detail at a large scale
Is very very hard.
is very, very hard. And I think this is,
You either need to be knowing exactly what you're doing at like the first attempt, get it right the first attempt and move on, or just have that much time to like figure it out through multiple iterations. It's really really difficult.
so
But
yeah,
yeah.
I see that's where we're heading towards. Like a lot of the other projects I would like to believe so is going to consider is going to be culturally sensitive or sensitive to the culture of Dubai itself.
Right. So a lot more cultural sensitive
But at this,
projects.
yeah, cultural sensitive projects, but at the same time taking into consideration the global centric views,
Right.
along with being environmentally conscientious.
Okay. That's true. That's true. I would have to agree with that. It's quite similar in architecture as well. I see them going down a very similar kind of path, which makes things a little more reassuring for me, because that would then mean that if architecture and idea are going down that same route, it means that probably by default be more integration between architecture and ID, which is something which lacks here
Yeah.
most of the time. Just that disconnect between both fields.
But you would also have to include graphic design, because we wouldn't be able to, like, so it's all, for me it's everything, like all the parts together. I'm not saying this correctly, but
We're
yeah.
like a big Lego block that's coming together.
Exactly, like it has to be an intermingling or whatever. It has to be a marriage of all the fields.
Oh, marriage, the M word.
It has to be a marriage of all the fields, like graphic design, interior design,
Right.
even product design, and I would have to say even musicians. So for example, and I say that because there are companies out there that are today trying to cater. So like I said, remember I said multi-sensory experience, where sound is also a part of it, and you're trying to cater sounds, or like the way something sounds like, to again back to your brands. Music is also a part of that experience.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is really interesting when I start to think about how. I mean, this is something which maybe you can also like share your thoughts on. Have you ever wondered how things, or rather, when you're designing, right? You find inspiration in the most weirdest of places,
Yeah.
right? Not all the time. It's not like you have to always be finding it from a weird place, but I find that sometimes, just by talking to someone or like visiting a certain place, or, looking at this coffee thing that I'm drinking out of, it just things like, patterns and textures kind of stand out. And I have a theory that somewhere they're kind of saved in some kind of like temporary storage. You don't even understand it's being saved up there, but it kind of does. And then it kind of comes out randomly whenever it does. So the point which I'm trying to kind of discuss is, it's scary how random that is. It's scary that you could have this potential for this big awesome design solution, but what happens if it just never occurs to you? Or what happens if it just never gets that spark for you to think about, the fact that it's, like design can be so random in a sense like that, that it's almost scary that what if, that just passes, to which people normally then say that, yeah, if that passes, there's be another one,
Yeah,
and
there's
another
gonna
one,
be- yeah.
and another
And-
one. But what are your thoughts on it? Is it as random as that to find a good idea, or do you feel you need to like exercise through?
Yeah, for me it is like I have to exercise through, like for example, if it is a particular, I try to make a mind map of, and try to stay as relevant as possible, and even if it's not relevant, like mind map it out and like try to make some connections out of that out of a concept, for example,
Right.
and then eventually get to where I want to get. But for me, it's not very so random.
Okay. Yeah, for me, then probably that's like a my thing. So earlier when we were talking about FFNE and finishes, invigorating the senses,
Yeah.
and so on, there are a million suppliers clearly in Dubai, right? I mean, there's no shortage of suppliers over here supplying practically everything.
Exactly.
My question has about three parts. The first part is how good or bad are the suppliers locally now? Generally speaking, how good or bad are they in comparison to internationally what's available? B, how do you as a designer vet them, kind of like, for lack of a better word, interrogate them to make sure that they're a good fit for your project?
Yeah.
And C would be, how have you seen is their service throughout the project? So how good or bad are they in comparison to international standards? How do you vet them? And how are they during the entire design process?
Okay. Yeah. So first of all, a lot of the local suppliers still don't have local stocks, to be honest. And even though we were to specify, I mean, yeah, there are local suppliers making things locally and supplying them locally, but still there in Dubai, a lot of the suppliers are more international based, and which means that we would have longer lead times. And then like Dubai is a place where everything is so like super quick, like quick service and all of that. But what we're still lacking is actually having local stocks of supplies in the market, because people are, I don't know how to, like, is it actually a thing that people are scared of not being able to sell,
Not being able to sell meaning?
not being able to sell their products?
It's true, because I guess the projects vary so much here. I mean, there would be obviously a few things which they know will obviously move, so they can keep that in a lot of stock.
Yeah.
But Dubai is also a place where people do a lot of risky stuff. I mean, there's a lot of weird things that you could need. But then I can see as a supplier how he or she would feel scared to stock that, because he'd spend so much money and effort in getting that, and then it would just stock up in a warehouse where he's paying rent.
Exactly.
And he doesn't know if it'll actually move or not. So
But then so generally what happens is that, for example, we've done, let's say, an FNB project, and we specified lighting, for example. We specified lighting, like decorative lighting, for example, and then even if it gets approved by the client in terms of budget,
right.
when it comes to like actually building it, the contractors,
Yes.
what happens is that the contractors would have probably not placed the order on time, so that they can then
Right. Have a very sneaky variation and be like, oh, so sorry about that fact, but check out this other two suppliers who we have.
exactly, to get their, I don't like, to get their financial gain or benefit out of it.
True.
So similar thing happened in, I don't know if I want to name the project, but one of the
Okay.
projects that we worked on, lighting, the client loved it, was awesome. And then when it came to actually installing it on site, there was nothing in stock, and then the client had to go like shop by shop and like hand pick.
Man, that's really sad when that happens. I mean, that happens a lot more than it should. And it just, I mean, for me, it's a very sad thing when that happens. I feel really bad. Not for the project, but more for the client.
Yeah.
Because that client actually bought into your vision and actually bought into what your idea was. And when that doesn't work out and it has to go down to, that kind of extent, it's just really sad.
It is.
It's one of the things I think about for designers in general. I mean, not just for like ID, but like in general. I'm sure there are other designers who have the exact same problem.
Yeah, but for us, we're not just doing things because, oh my God, it's pretty, but we're also doing things because it's actually good for the client, and it's
Yeah, of
actually good
course.
for the.
Of course, there's a lot of thought behind it.
Yeah.
It's not a random thing that you're just picking out of a catalog. It just kind of sucks when that doesn't work out the way that it's supposed to. But that then kind of answers question 2, which was then how do you vet your suppliers? Do you have a certain kind of checklist which maybe you go through in your mind, or is there a certain checklist which you as, say, a company kind of operate through? Like how do you say
So we like.
shortlist someone or approve someone?
Okay, so it like there are various different kinds of suppliers, and I meet suppliers like at least two different suppliers every week, and
Which seems like a common thing that you would be doing.
yeah,
Right.
and for me, like I try to meet as many people as I can so that like and try to be as resourceful as possible to
Right.
the organization, but we try to categorize the suppliers in terms of first the budget, like high end, low end, mid end, and then when it comes to lead times, like longer lead times, short lead times in stock. Then again, depending upon the project, we then try to specify that in terms of like high end, low end, and then is it okay if it's like longer lead time, shorter lead time, or
Right.
like do you need immediate stock
Right.
for something? And then also for us, like it's even the requirement of samples, because at the end of the day we have to even submit a sample board
Of course.
to our
Of
client.
course.
So like how quickly the samples are going to be available for
Right.
them.
Right. Okay. And then finally, the third point would be during the entire construction process. So now they've received the order, money has moved. For local suppliers, again, here, how do you see their involvement throughout the project? Do you feel like it could be better? Do you feel like they're doing enough? Do you feel like they're lacking? I mean, I'm sure it varies from different products and different finishes, but generally speaking, as a market standard, do you feel like they're on point with their service throughout the project?
I feel like it is a lot more even before sales, not just after sales. Like how, because as a design agency, you want to have the best for your project, right? And so you try to source things from as many suppliers as you can,
Right.
and like see what's best for your project. And there are a mixed bag of like suppliers here in the market. Like there are some people who are really good, like really really good, and then there are some people who are just okay and not so like up to the standard. But yeah, one of my favorite suppliers here is Sensi, because it has a very Dubai service. Like everything is so
The buy service.
yeah, Dubai is like instant.
Samples takeaway.
Everything is so Dubai. Like even like the way the customer service is, like I deal with Amir from Sensi, and like he's
Shout out to Amir for doing a good job, clearly.
yeah, like if I just would have to send him a picture on WhatsApp or like just give him a call, and he would understand exactly what we need,
But that's an example of
and
how
and provide us samples within hours, sometimes if not days.
true, but that's probably an example about how he actually understands the project. He's not just thinking from like a sales point of view that I have to move this amount of this product to meet my target at the end of the month. He's thinking about how the project is, right?
Yeah,
I mean, I'm just assuming that's what he does.
yeah, yeah. I'm assuming so as well. No, I'm like he's doing a really good job, but even
So then what would be then the contrast to that? Because you said it was a mixed bag, right? So then if that's the really good, what's then the really bad?
for me, like I've had a very not so good experience
Okay.
in so usually a sample would take about a week to order, a week or sometimes even less. But if it's a very special sample, it would take about 2 weeks. However, like this one hasn't even been like a special sample. It was just a laminate sample. Okay, and it actually took 2 weeks. Like it just took me a week to get my request through, first of all, and then another week and a half to like me follow up and ensuring that, oh, am I gonna actually get the sample on time? And then no response from the end. And then a month and a half later, when the person arrives, the samples are not even the right samples.
Wow.
I mean, partially, like there are some samples missing, there are some samples there, but I'm hoping that was just like one time that it happened and that it doesn't happen again. And
Well, sure. I mean, everyone has the benefit of doubt, I guess, to an extent.
yeah,
But yeah, I mean, that's a good example of the really bad. Then that
Yeah.
makes sense. So then you're saying, as an average, it's a mix of both
It
of
is
those
a-
experiences.
yeah.
Okay. Which is not that bad. I mean, I guess it could be worse. It could be better also, obviously.
Yeah.
But okay, I mean, that's a fairly decent understanding then of what the market's like. And finally, the last question that I have is: are there any passion projects that you have on your mind, which you'd want to explore?
I really want to design a community project wherein I can create a self-sustaining community. Going back to how I did my graduation project, which was an urban hamlet for Syrian refugees. So it is trying to resolving a real community issue.
Okay.
That would actually be one of my dream projects, as it goes back to who I am as a person, and for me, it's very important for being able to give back to the community. Like being so fortunate to be a part of being in this part of the world, like you've been so fortunate enough to get all of the luxury and all of the.
So you'd want to focus more on, say, community-centric designs.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool then.
Cool.
I guess that kind of brings us to the end of the interview.
Yes.
So I would like to once again say,
Thank you very much for having. No, thank you very much for inviting.
do people know what I'm going to say already? I might as well just not say it. No, but in all seriousness, man, this is something which a lot of these questions were very personal to me because I've just wanted to know more about it. I consider my knowledge on the field to be quite ignorant, and I'm very happy to say that I am. But I feel like after what I heard today, I feel like I know a little bit more about the field for sure.
I hope so.
And I'm sure so have our listeners. Even if it wasn't about the field, just about overall design in the region, I think this was quite beneficial. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you for having me on the show.
And on that note, we'll see you guys next week.
Have an awesome day ahead.
Hey guys, thank you so much for listening to the complete episode. It means the world to us that you did. As you probably know, this episode, along with a host of many others, are available on all of your favorite streaming platforms. If this episode in any way added value to you, please subscribe to us and leave us a review. It really helps us get the show out there to a much larger audience. Feel free to share the episode with your friends, your colleagues, or anyone who may benefit from it. Meanwhile, if you'd like to get in touch with us, follow us on Instagram at aform.studio. That is at aform.studio, and send us a DM. That's it. It's that easy. All right, guys, this has been awesome, and we'll catch you guys next week.